Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, two of us are in. Producer John, once again, out. Resident driver and hobbled coach joins me. And we will be talking some big news in NASCAR this week. Got a driver trade, and I actually mean that literally as opposed to figuratively. We'll get back to that. Major sponsor is exiting. We got silly season. You want to talk about really taking a hold in IndyCar. Man, oh man. Got an F1 driver who gets in trouble for talking. Huh? An NHRA, the NHRA actually doing something really, really good for a very good reason. They're changing their substitute driver rules. Fill more in on that in a little bit. Got that, and we got so much more to talk about. I mean, again, I'm going to go back to the silly season IndyCar thing. It's getting kind of crazy over there. We got plenty to get to. We got 2 hours to get to it. Thank you for joining us. Stick around. We'll get things rolling right after this.
Stay right here for more on the
Welcome in. I'm Steve West. Coach Matt over there. Got an afternoon game this afternoon. So no worries. Get to stick with us the whole show.
Yeah, all 1.5 of me.
Yeah, we'll talk about the hobbling here in a little bit.
Yeah.
We got a race recap and a schedule and a whole lot to talk about when it comes to that. So let's talk about last Saturday. Xfinity Series New York State running at Watkins Glen International had a little bit of history made there. 18-year-old Connor Zilich, who's been signed to drive full-time in 2025 for Trackhouse Racing as loaned out to Junior Motorsports, got a jump start in 2025, got the pole in his first ever race in the Xfinity Series. And then turned around.
Not surprised.
And was the first ever driver not only to claim the pole, but to win his first ever race in NASCAR history. Now, he's only the 7th driver in the top levels of NASCAR to claim a win in their very first race, not including the debut race of that particular series. But he is the first driver in the top levels of NASCAR, period, to claim the pole and the win in his first race.
Pretty sporty.
Pretty sporty.
Pretty sporty.
Zilich was the class of the field. He dominated the day. He led 45 of the 90 laps, made Sheldon Creed settle for yet another second-place finish.
Sure that was the only one?
No, we're not. A.J. Allmendinger, Chandler Smith, Shane Van Gisbergen filled out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Moonlighter Ross Chastain was 6th, Parker Kligerman, Jesse Love, the Moonlighter Joey Logano, and Josh Bilicki. Now, with no new winner to qualify for the playoffs, we will wait until we detail last night's Bristol race before breaking down who made the playoffs and who missed, because last night was the cutoff race. If you didn't get into the playoffs after last night, too bad. Wait until next year. Sunday's busy day of racing last weekend started with Formula One in Baku, Azerbaijan. And as we noted on the show last week, Charles Leclerc was on the pole. By the way, they just started qualifying, I think.
Correct.
For Singapore.
Correct.
Leclerc was able to keep that position off the standing start. But after a round of pit stops on a one-stop strategy race, Oscar Piastri started to put the pressure on, made his move on lap 20, got out front and held off a few challenges from Leclerc, rolled on to the win. Leclerc pretty much used up his tires. He ended up being challenged by George Russell, but was just able to hang on. Lando Norris, on the other hand, his McLaren teammate, was not. He fell to 4th. Max Verstappen, yeah, you know, that 3-time defending champion, finished 5th. Rest of your top 10, get this lineup, folks. Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon, Franco Colapinto scored 8th in his first race. Then Lewis Hamilton, and Ollie Behrman scored 10th and a point in his first race for his 2025 team, Haas F1. Back to the points, where Max Verstappen still does lead, 313 to 254 over Lando Norris. And you think, well, that's, still we're talking, 60-ish points. 60 points can be made up pretty quick, especially when you're on a burner like Lando Norris has been, and when you are, stumbling over your own big feet if you're Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc's got 235, 222 for Oscar Piastri. Carlos Sainz then has 184. Lewis Hamilton 164, 143 for George Russell. Sergio Perez, then Fernando Alonso, and Lance Stroll. That fills out your top 10. Fernando Alonso 58, 24 points for Lance Stroll, respectively. Constructors' Cup leader has changed hands. When was the last time we saw that? We'll talk about that in a little while, too.
And in the words of the classic phrase of the song, it's been a while.
Yeah. McLaren's now out front, 476 points to Red Bull's 456. Then you got 425 for Ferrari. There's actually a possibility, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's a possibility Red Bull could drop to 3rd. Mercedes has 309. They're all by themselves. Aston Martin's got 82. They're pretty much all by themselves. And then you got V-Carb. They're sitting at 34. 29 now for Haas F1. Williams up to 16 with a double points day. They actually jumped up on over Alpine, who drops to 9th with their 13. And there's Sauber with their big fat 0 still.
Yeah. Yep.
Not looking promising, by the way.
Nope.
NHRA's first round of the chase for the championship got in at Maple Grove Raceway in Pennsylvania, Reading specifically. Finals of Top Fuel came down to a face-off between Antron Brown and Sean Langdon. Brown with the advantage off the Christmas tree. That worked into the win, 3.798 ET, 327.27 miles per hour. This marks the fourth win of the season for Brown, 78th of his soon-to-be Hall of Fame career.
Crazy.
Funny Car Finals came down to a duel between Fast Jack Beckman, filling in for John Force, and his John Force Racing teammate, Austin Prock. Well, if you're John Force, you're pretty happy about that, aren't you? Beckman with a slight reaction time advantage, but Proc was by him by the time they got past the Christmas tree. He rolls onto the win. 3.896 ET, 332.51 miles per hour. It's his 6th win of the year, the 10th of his young but promising young career so far. And Aaron Stanfield, speaking about being a guy on a burner, took on Erica Enders in the Pro Stock Car Finals. It was Stanfield with a huge reaction time advantage, worked into a whole shot win, as actually Enders was quicker light to light. Reaction time making all the difference. 0.019 on the reaction for Stanfield. Pulls a 6.569 ET at 209.26 miles per hour. Marks his 5th win of the year, 13th of his Pro Stock car career to date. Of course, he's got a lot more wins in other series. And do my eyes deceive me? But when I look at the Pro Stock motorcycle finals, no Gage Herrera? Huh? No, it's true. Finals featured a head-on between Hector Arana Jr. and Richard Gadsden. Gadsden with a better reaction time, but Arana able to chase him down by the midway point. He rolls onto the win, 6.839 ET, 198.38 miles per hour. Marks the first win of 2024 for Arana. You know, go back to the Gage Herrera thing. He's pretty much dominated almost everything this year. But it is his 19th win of his career so far. So here are your top fuel points. They closed up. Justin Ashley is up 1 single point on Antron Brown going into race 2. Sean Langdon 6 back, 33 down is Doug Kalita. Steve Torrance 58 back. 79 down is Clay Milliken. Tony Stewart's 94 back, and 96 from the lead is Tony Schumacher. I'm going to go, if you're within 100, I'll call your name out. Funny Car Standings has Austin Prock up 86 on Bob Tasca the third. John Force with Jack Beckman now driving his 99 back. That's it. Aaron Stanfield leads Pro Stock car by 9 over Dallas Glenn. Erica Enders 35 behind, trailing by 46 is Greg Anderson. And then you go to Pro Stock motorcycle. Gage Herrera leads by 17. One would have thought that would have been a lot further apart, but it ain't. 19 back, Richard Gadsden. Hector Arana Jr. 60 down. Chase Van Zant's 96 back, and John Hall is 99 from the lead. Then a race that Matt and I had the chance to go to last weekend. We found ourselves in, well, technically, Lebanon, Tennessee for Nashville.
Glad it was last week and not this week.
That's true. Nashville Superspeedway 2024 season finale for Indycar. 2 celebrations taking place after the race because, well, let's face it, the 2024 champion didn't have the racer that was going to help him win the race, but as it turned out, he really didn't need to because his closest competitor, Will Power, had a problem early in the race, went down a couple of laps, and well, he was never able to make it up. Out front, Colton Herta was able to lead a couple of times for a total of 24 laps and happened to be out front by almost 2 seconds when the checkered flag was shown to the field. He gets the win over Pato Award. Joseph Newgarden 3rd, Kyle Kirkwood 4th, and then 5th, Scott McLaughlin. Rest of your top 10, Santino Ferrucci. There's that AJ Foyt driver again. We'll get back to him in a bit. Marcus Armstrong, Linus Lundqvist, David Malukas, and Connor Daly filling out the top 10. Alex Palou was languishing really mid-pack pretty much all day.
He was.
He was able to coax his racer to an 11th place finish, which was more than enough points-wise to claim the 2024 title. Will Power struggling to a 24th place result, 4 laps down. Palou's 544 points claims the title. Colton Herta actually with the win jumps into 2nd in final points, 513. Scott McLaughlin also jumping up there. He takes 3rd with 505 points. Will Power drops all the way to 4th, 498. Rest of your top 10, Pato Award with 460, Scott Dixon 456, 420 for Kyle Kirkwood, Joseph Newgarden with 401, 367 for Santino Ferrucci in 9th, first driver for AJ Foyt Racing since 2002 to claim a top 10 in the final points of the year. 10th and final in the points is Alexander Rossi, who racked up 366. Alexander Rossi, as of this moment, does not have a ride for next year. And he's not the only one. We'll get back to that.
That's odd.
Final rookie standings, Linus Lundqvist, 279. He's your winner, as we talked about last week, 182 for Kiffin Simpson. Christian Rasmussen with 163, and then Nolan Siegel, 154. Rest of your standings, they were all part-time drivers, nowhere near in contention. Chevrolet, your engine manufacturer, we noted that on the show last week. Your final standings have them 475 points to Honda's 1,343. And then we head back to Watkins Glen International for the Cup Series race, which went into overtime. And then another overtime. before Shane Van Gisbergen got out in front of Chris Buescher on what turned out to be the final restart. And we were listening to that as we were driving back from Nashville Superspeedway, which I got to admit, we got out of there much smoother and quicker than I thought we would.
Very, very, very smooth.
So credit to the Nashville Superspeedway folks and the authorities in Lebanon, Tennessee. They made it very easy. So either way, we're driving down the road. Go ahead.
And let us remind you, that is coming out of the infield, out of the tunnel, going back to 840 and getting rolling.
Yeah, that's true.
After the race, from when the race ended, to the time we got in the truck and the time we hit 840 was probably 20 minutes.
If
max.
that.
If that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it was that long.
Maybe that much at max.
And so we're on the interstate. I mean, we're well on the interstate when we hear this second overtime begin. And you and I both had the same reaction, effectively. I can't quote you because I don't remember exactly what you said. But when we get to the second restart and Shane Van Gisbergen gets out front, you and I both really said at that point in time, it's over.
Yeah, I literally said, see ya. He's done.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then we go, wait a minute here.
Yeah, that was that, right? No. SVG took the white flag, but Buescher noted that he was beginning to kind of reel him in. Now, again, this is a road course ace, SVG, so catching up to him is one thing. Getting around him on a rather narrow, and all things being considered, Watkins Glen International, getting around him is another story. Unless, of course, SVG makes a mistake, which he did, uncharacteristically. He went a little wide through the inner loop, got into the grass, and Buescher was able to take advantage. He got the lead and was able to hold it to the checkers. Buescher with a surprise win, SVG, and then Carson Hocevar third, Ross Chastain fourth, and Zane Smith fifth.
Just want to say thank you, gentlemen, because that was my greatest sweep ever on a fantasy league that me and Steve play in.
Yeah.
I had a 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, and how in the world he ended up picking the team with that ended up having all three Spire Motorsports guys on there, and you win. I don't know. Congratulations to Spire Motorsports, too. Chase Briscoe was sixth. Michael McDowell, Corey LaJoy, there's your third Spire guy. Ryan Preece and Austin Cindric made up the top 10. Buescher, not being a playoff contender, puts more pressure on everybody, but, well, Joey Logano, who, of course, won in this playoffs opener, he's moving on. The battle to be in the top 12 has Ty Gibbs and Chase Briscoe tied at 6 over the cut line. Now, this is important because you think about what happened after Atlanta, where Chase Briscoe was dead last in the points at what, 20, was it 22, 24 under? I forget which.
Yes, 24.
So he makes up effectively 30 points from week 1 to week 2. He's 6 over the cut line. Denny Hamlin is 6 under. Brad Keselowski is 12 under. Martin Truex Jr. is 14 under. And Harrison Burton is now last in the standings, 20 under the cut line. Of those, sorry, Harrison, you're the only guy who we predicted was going to be sitting under the cut line going into the final race of the first round.
Correct.
Wow. That said, this is a good track for Hamlin. It's a good track for Joe Gibbs Racing, so that bodes well for Martin Truex Jr. And let's face it, Brad Keselowski's no slouch at Bristol either.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting. This week's racing actually began Thursday, Bristol Motor Speedway with the UNOH 200 presented by Ohio Logistics. Lane Riggs able to get around Corey Heim on lap 121 of the 200-lap event, and he was able to hold the lead till the end, got his second career win, and marks his fourth straight top 5 finish of the year. So Lane Riggs might be somebody to keep an eye on over the next year or so.
They're getting hot at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's unfortunately for him, but hey, they're getting hot, and that's not a bad thing. Riggs wins. Heim finishes second. Rajah Carew third. Christian Eckes fourth. And Nick Sanchez rounds out the top 5. Matt Crafton, Chase Purdy, Ty Majeski, Stuart Friesen, Tyler Ankrum are the rest of your top 10. Now, Christian Eckes leads the way on points. Down towards the bottom is where we're really more concerned. Grant Enfinger is your 8 seed. He's got a 7-point lead over Daniel Dye for that final playoff spot. 12-point lead over the 10 seed Ben Rhodes. And only the Kansas race is left in this round. So nobody really is comfortable down towards the bottom side of things.
Nope.
Last night at Bristol, Xfinity Series decided to play a little bit in the Food City 300. I'll let Matt take this one.
Well, I can give you just the results because I was in another zip code last night. You had Cole Custer taking the win and coming from behind and taking the regular season championship.
Yeah, for a guy who had a flat tire problem in the first, lap or couple of laps, I think it was?
Yep. Yeah, something like
Not a
something
bad
like
comeback.
that, huh? Hey, gosh almighty, there he is again. In second, Sheldon Creed.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
Chandler Smith third. You had Jesse Love fourth. Ryan Truex with another good run in the 20 car and fifth. You had Brandon Jones sixth. Some rookie named Dale Earnhardt Jr. in seventh.
I wonder where he's been.
Ryan Sieg in eighth. Sam Mayer in ninth, and AJ Allmendinger in the top 10. Here's the crazy thing about this playoff deal.
Okay.
Ryan Sieg from the regular season scored more points than Sam Mayer and Shane Van Gisbergen, but he's out.
Yeah. Thanks to Shane Van Gisbergen claiming 3 wins on the year. Let's run them down for you. Despite his winning the regular season title with the win last night, Cole Custer is actually your 2 seed heading into the playoffs. Justin Allgaier is the 1 seed, Cole Custer the 2. Austin Hill is the 3. Your 4 seed is Chandler Smith. SVG is your 5 seed. Jesse Love is your 6. Sam Mayer, Riley Erbst, then Sheldon Creed, AJ Allmendinger, Sammy Smith, and Parker Kligerman round out the field. Creed, the 9 seed, is 3 points under the cut line set by Riley Erbst. AJ Allmendinger's 4 under. Sammy Smith is 9 back, and Parker Kligerman enters the playoffs 12 under the cut line, once again set by Riley Erbst. See.
Yep.
Tonight, Cup Series, wrap of round 1 or the round of 16, however you wish to put it. Bass Pro Shops Night Race at Bristol, shown on USA, heard on PRN Radio starting 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Our flagship station's pretty happy. They get to air the race because Georgia's off this week. Alex Bowman, by the way, is the guy sitting on the pole.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the pole, they're in qualifying right now for Formula One. They're headed to Asia right now. Singapore Airlines, Singapore Grand Prix. What an appropriate sponsor. It's on the Marina Bay Street Circuit, 19 turns, 3 miles long. The race will air on ESPN here in the United States, 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central Time. Are they through with Q1 yet?
They just took the checkers in Q1.
All right. What are we looking at?
Your first 5 out is going to be Zhou Guan Yu.
Not a shock.
Valtteri Bottas.
Not a shock.
Pierre Gasly.
Little surprised, but
Lance
not really.
Stroll.
No.
And Daniel Ricciardo.
No. Not really all that terribly surprised by any of them.
Both Williams are sitting in the top 10 currently.
Interesting to note. And by the way, round 2 of the chase for the championship for the NHRA, going from Pennsylvania a little south to North Carolina. They're going to run event number 2 at the chase of the NHRA Carolina Nationals ZMAX Dragway. It will not be 4 wide in this particular case, only the 2 wide. Finals will air on Fox Sports 1 tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. All right. So with that out of the way.
Sorry if you guys see me adjusting on YouTube Live. I got to get something elevated here. I'm starting to hurt.
We're going to explain that when we come back.
Yeah.
And then get into the news because there's a lot of it. We'll start with the Cup Series because, well, we've heard of trades before in major sports. And we've kind of mentioned it when it comes to racing, but this might actually be the first time it's actually been a trade.
We will be right back with more on the champion. Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in here. All right, let's get to the news first of what in the world was Matt talking about when he was saying, if you catch me adjusting. It's because Coach Matt is, well, he's a little hobbled.
Yeah, we're on the, I guess you could say we're on the 30-day DL. And for our Chicago brethren terms.
Yeah.
Little freak accident Wednesday. And actually did cross flags.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you see me inverted because I'm having to sit like this because I'm having to elevate my foot. Getting out of the truck at the store, foot slips on the door of the truck, stepping out, hits asphalt completely flush, resulting in some severe hyperextension of my ligaments in my foot, as well as a fractured heel.
Oh, gosh.
So, yay.
So he's in a walking boot.
Walking boot. Jacked up on a prescription of prednisone steroids and pain medicine. Mm-hmm. So if y'all see me in rare form today, I'm apologizing in advance.
It's going to be fun, folks. We just got an hour and a half in the show.
Yes, we do.
As we kind of teased here, we have seen this many, many times in stick and ball sports. Even though a player has a contract with a team, that team generally has the right to trade the player to another team unless they have a clause in there that says no trade, right? Right. We haven't seen that in racing. We've seen drivers swap teams from time to time. In other words, I'm driving for Joe Gibbs Racing and Matt's over there driving for Hendrick Motorsports, and then all of a sudden
Which would be great.
I go to Hendrick Motorsports and Matt decides, you know what, I'll go to Joe Gibbs Racing. We kind of jokingly, to use the Air Bunnies there if you're watching on CRN Live, call that a trade. But it wasn't really a trade because I worked out the deal to go to Hendrick, and then Matt turned around and worked up the deal to go to Joe Gibbs, right? Right. This situation seems to be where the teams and the drivers all got together and worked out an actual trade, which I find interesting because just like the example I gave, there's two manufacturers involved here. Rick Ware Racing and Spire Motorsports have come together. They agreed to swap Corey LaJoie for Justin Haley. So Haley's going to move to the 51 car from the 7. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Haley's going to move, actually, I should say, from the 51 car to the 7. See, I'm confusing myself already. While LaJoie will go from the 7 to the 51. This deal was announced just yesterday at Bristol. Drivers staying with their respective cars for tonight's race. So LaJoie will still be in the 7. Haley will still be in the 51. And then after that, boom, switch.
Here's the kicker. Here's the kicker to this right here. Before you get into what the statement from Robbie Benton.
Yeah.
Brad Keselowski during his media time at Bristol yesterday before they got in the car. And this is straight from Bob Prockerson on his social media. Brad Keselowski, whose RFK Racing has an alliance with Rick Ware Racing, said he was aware of the Justin Haley move, and it's something that they couldn't match with Haley's move involving Hendrick and its tight relationship with Spire.
Yeah.
Here's another key phrase he had, too. To be a part of Rick Hendrick's deal there and what that means for him after 25. But that's their announcement to have.
Yeah.
So now we play the guessing game of whose car is he taking in 25?
Uh-huh. All right, so here's the situation. So for the final 7 races of the 2024 season, you've got Haley running for Spire. You've got LaJoie running for Rick Ware. Jeff Dickerson was on hand for the announcement of Spire Motorsports, told media Haley has actually already been signed for 2025 to drive the 7 car, so he will team with incoming crew chief Rodney Childers, who you remember we talked about a few weeks ago, is sliding from Stewart-Haas Racing to Spire.
With Haley and Childers, that could be very, very sneaky.
Yes, could be sneaky good. Rick Ware Racing, on the other hand, was not quite willing to follow suit when it came to LaJoie. The aforementioned Robbie Benton, who's the president of Rick Ware Racing, said that his team would use the final 7 races of this year to assess and, if necessary, make adjustments in preparation for 2025. So effectively, while you've got a situation where Justin Haley had the safety net of having the contract that is going to be picked up for next year anyway. Corey LaJoie, who knew earlier this year that Spire was going to be letting him go, has been handed a lifeline with no safety net from Rick Ware Racing. In other words, he's got a 7-race tryout to see if Rick Ware Racing is willing to sign him past this year.
I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to say it.
Go for it.
If he can't do something in the 51 car after what Haley has been able to do with that 51 car, which he's been on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say his consistency level, barring a mechanical issue or something that that wasn't caused by him.
Something out of his control.
Something out of his control.
Yeah, which at Bristol and Talladega, let's face it, that's an easy thing to get into.
Very. Something that's out of his control. Let's word it that way.
And I say Bristol, I understand Corey LaJoie is going to be in the 7 car for tonight, but still, it's a prime example.
And he's got a top 10 starting spot.
That he does.
Haley has taken that 51 car and took it from probably, I'm going to say, a 2 or a 3 to a 7 or 8.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I might have gone 6, but at the same time, any improvement over what they have been doing at Rick Ware Racing is a major improvement over what we've seen.
And you can tell, I could tell with Brad's body language yesterday talking about that.
He's a little depressed.
He's a little perturbed because from my understanding, Haley was the driver in waiting for the 6 car for when Brad decided to say, let's call it a career.
Yeah. And, not that I think that he's ready to step out immediately, but probably within the next couple of years, because let's face it, being the 1/3 owner of Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing and really probably being the guy who's actually the hands-on owner. I mean, the Fenway Sports Group, they're dealing with so much other stuff right now. They're not the hands-on people. And Jack Roush has all but 1 foot out anyway, if not almost having 2 feet out. I'm going to go into front office mode here. It's all but a given, in my opinion. Zane Smith is going to go to the 3rd front row car. He's going to go back to front row. It seems that way, yeah.
He never should have left, if you ask me.
That probably is true, too.
It seems that way. But with how RFK has helped Rick Ware Racing step from step 2 of the rung of the ladder to probably step 5, even though there's 15 rungs up the ladder, they went from 2 to 5.
Not more.
If not more. But that's being generous.
Yeah.
But with the process they went to go get Haley to be in that position, if I was RFK, if I was Rick Ware and I went to RFK and said, if you can guarantee me this car can perform to the level of the 6 and 17 on a weekly basis, we will go get Zane Smith. Zane Smith is now your driver and waiting for the 6 car, which in my opinion would not be a bad deal.
No, because here's the thing. If you use the competitive power of RFK Racing along with Rick Ware, you can easily field a competitive contract.
For sure.
Easily field a competitive contract. It's going to be fun to watch. 2311 Racing has taken 1 driver off the market. They have signed Bubba Wallace to a contract extension. They didn't say how long it was. It is a multi-year deal, though. In the social media post about the deal, the team's statement read, quote, "From day one, Bubba has been an integral part of 2311. We are excited to announce that he has signed a multi-year renewal and will continue to play a key role in helping 2311 grow and succeed. #forward together. He's 19th in the standings heading into this weekend. Would have been a little higher in the standings, truth be told, if it hadn't been for a couple of kind of unexpected wins. Harrison Burton, for example.
Ding.
He's been a playoff contender before, but Bubba's situation, and this is kind of a 2311 situation. Tyler Reddick is steadier than Bubba is. Let's just put it that way. He's more consistent. They got to find some consistency over there in that 23 car, because sometimes it seems like they're competing for the checkers. Other times he's got that car crumpled up, it seems like.
Yet again, we're going to open this up, and I'm just going to call it like it is because I'm in one of those moods today. Bubba's got to get out of his own head.
Okay, explain that.
Bubba has got to get out of his own head, because if one little thing goes wrong or one mistake happens, whether it be if somebody else is causing or if he makes a mistake, you think you're looking at Igor walking down pit road with a rain cloud over his head. That's the problem.
He's thinking about it too much. He can't put an incident behind him.
Exactly.
I got
He's
it.
He's putting way too much about. He can't put it behind him, because, if we hadn't done this at Kansas, if we hadn't did this at Dover, if we hadn't did this at Charlotte, just give an example, we'd be in a better position. Yes, dude, that race is over.
Mm-hmm.
The race is freaking over. Go on, move on, be done with it.
Yeah.
And for the next 2 weeks, not counting tonight, he's arguably going to his best 2 tracks. Arguably.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
There's a very, and fight me, argue with me, I don't care.
Stats back you up.
Stats back it up. And he could realistically go back to back.
I could see it.
There is a realistic shot out of the first 5 races of the playoffs. There could be 4 non-playoff drivers, 4 races won by non-playoff drivers.
Yeah. Talk about upsetting the apple cart.
Well, it sure did at Watkins Glen. It could realistically happen tonight.
Sure. And then there's Talladega, which is always a wild card.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then there's Kansas, like you said. Yeah. It'll be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see what, if anything, this does to change dynamics. Speaking of swapping teams, Ty Norris, longtime executive for a whole lot of NASCAR teams, by the way, left Trackhouse Racing early this week officially, and just yesterday it was announced he was going to be joining rival Chevrolet team Cowlig Racing. His role at Cowlig will be Chief Business Officer, Head of Partnerships, and Long-Term Strategy. He'll pretty much be a right-hand man for the owner, Matt Cowlig, and the team president, Chris Rice. Now, think about Norris. He's been an executive. He's worked right alongside Dale Earnhardt Sr. at Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. He then went over to Michael Waltrip Racing, which, considering how that team ended, it was something of a black mark, but he was able to redeem himself when he joined Trackhouse upon their formation in 2021. Now he goes to Cowlig Racing. What do all of those teams have in common? They were all able to be highly competitive and win races. Was it all Ty Norris is doing? No. Did Ty Norris have a hand in it? Almost definitely.
Absolutely he did. But this says to me that there is, well, really can't say it now because Trackhouse is going 3 cars.
Yes.
If they weren't going to the 3 cars, this was setting up to be a murder.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that.
They technically do it now. Because
they could still technically,
They technically do it now because Gisbergen drives for Cowlig in Cup and Xfinity.
Yeah. They could still. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. Got another one more bit of big news here for the Cup Series. It deals with sponsorship and not for a team. What do I mean by that? Stick around. We'll tell you right after this break.
We will be.
a somewhat hobbled Matt Nicholson. Producer John is out as, busy sports day over there.
And here
in the
is,
television world.
Yeah, no kidding. Here's the bad part about this injury I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to a neurologist specialist on Monday for issues with my right foot because now my left foot is broken.
Mm-hmm.
So, time will tell.
Yes, should be interesting, but you're going to gut it out, and you'll be on the sidelines as coach tonight.
I'm going to gut it out, jacked up. I may look like Tom Brady running around, hobble, boot foot, and all yelling, let's go, but I'm going.
And the boys will love it.
There they are.
Cup Series a few years ago started this tiered partnership thing. And we thought about it at the time, and we were like, this is going to be hard to get used to, but over the course of time, we got used to it, and we're used to the Coca-Colas and the Xfinities being up there, and of course, we're used to the Geicos, right? Well, get ready, because Geico's exiting stage left.
Ruh-roh.
They informed NASCAR they were ending their top-tier sponsorship at the end of this year, marking the first loss of a premier partner since the Cup Series started this tiered sponsorship ladder thing way back in 2020. Geico's been involved in NASCAR in one way or another since 2009. Sports Business Journal report, by the way, only mentions the premier tier sponsorship. In no place in that report, I read it, so did Matt, can we figure out whether or not this will affect their sponsorship of the spring race at Talladega, the Geico 500, or whether it'll affect what we now know as the Geico Restart Zone. We don't know yet. That hasn't been revealed. What we do know is this. It is somewhere between a $6 and $9 million investment to be just a premier tier sponsor.
Oof.
So there you go. We'll find out.
And that's going to be, if they pull all the way out altogether, that's going to be another long-standing sponsor that Talladega has always had that is now gone.
Exactly.
Winston, Die Hard, UAW Ford.
I remember that. Yeah.
EA Sports.
I remember the EA Sports 500. Kind of miss that.
I do miss it, too, because I used to, before I took the elevated step up to the next level, I used to love sitting down there and listening to one do the introduction to EA Sports 500. That. But, maybe one of us will get lucky and hit the lottery, and when Geico pulls out, we now have the CRN 500. Never hurts to be wishful thinking.
Just saying for the leadership over at Talladega.
Which we do know very well, and we have a lot of them on speed dial.
That's true. Yeah. No, I'm not showing them to you. To the
Exactly.
Xfinity Series, we noted in the race recap that Sheldon Creed finished second to Cole Custer last night at Bristol. And that marks yet another second-place finish for Sheldon Creed without a win in his career. This is, it's a brand new record for all of NASCAR's top series. Sheldon Creed already had the Xfinity Series record for number of second-place finishes without a win. Now he's got the NASCAR Top Series record, most second-place finishes in Cup, Xfinity, or Trucks without having gone to victory lane. He breaks a tie with James Hilton. Hilton racked up 12 runner-up results before he claimed his first ever win, which he got in Richmond back in 1970. Sheldon Creed, on the other hand, is still waiting at 13 and counting.
Yeah.
At some point in time, though, I understand how frustrating it gets.
Yeah, for sure. It gets very frustrating.
But I'll put you in the position as the driver.
That's good because I've actually been in this position before.
Yeah. When you realize that you have racked up over your time behind the wheel of a car or a truck 13 second-place finishes. We'll set aside the without a win. We'll just say 13 second-place finishes. Doesn't that tell you something is right and you're not that far off? I mean, should you be just ultimately depressed, beating your head up against a brick wall?
I would be beating my head up against a 1-inch steel plate wall a little bit harder because, yes, you're there, you're close, but you just got to take that another half step to get right to the top.
Yeah, I get it. I mean,
What's the half step you're missing?
I understand the frustration, but again, this isn't the situation where you're running at the back half of the field every time. You're getting consistent top 10, 13 second place finishes. That means you and your team are working together and you're working together well. You just haven't found that one little thing that's going to put you over the top.
It falls back onto what I was told last year at Mid-Ohio directly from a team member that was on Sheldon's team at the time at RCR. He was the fuel man.
Yeah.
And I quote, Sheldon is dumber than a sack of rocks. He has better equipment than actually himself. He doesn't know how to utilize his equipment properly. It's a lot of people that do think that his performance peak was trucks.
Okay.
Because all these second place finishes that have come in Xfinity, he's got a handful of truck wins. But everything's come in Xfinity. He gets himself in position to win the race, which he could have had umpteen wins in Xfinity by now. He gets himself into that position, and then he just has a mental lapse and does something to make a mistake of some sort where it costs him the win.
Does it get into your head?
Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does.
So,
and if he doesn't take this 00 car that he's getting into next year, he's basically being gifted this 00 car.
Sure.
That is very, very strong performing.
Witness Cole Custer.
And is peaking at the right time right now.
Yeah.
That could very realistically be back-to-back champions.
Yeah, I could see it.
If you can't take that and evolve higher, you've got a problem.
Does he need to borrow the Days of Thunder way of looking at things? Does he need a Harry Hogg type? A guy who's as much a crew chief, but also a little bit of a psychiatrist?
You need more of an aggressive crew chief instead of a psychiatrist on the box.
Okay.
If you follow what I'm saying.
Okay.
You need more of like a get your you-know-what up there. It's going to stick. If you go to the high side, you can hold it.
You need that version
mentality.
of Harry Hogg. Okay.
Instead of, Cole, I don't think you need to be in the car. You don't need that version. You need the, if you go to the high side, you can hold it version.
I got you. Okay. Over to AM Racing. After letting Haley Deegan go just before the Chicago street race, since then they've been using a number of drivers. They've had Cup Series moonlighters Joey Logano. He was in the car last night at Bristol. Josh Berry.
He wasn't. Logan Bearden drove it last night.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Where was he? He's been in there twice.
Logan
was it Watkins Glen?
I think so.
Okay. I know he's been in there twice.
Logano was in it at Watkins Glen.
Okay. Thank you.
It's sad to say, but Logan Bearden has the best finish in that car the last 5 races at 27th.
So you got Logano, you got Josh Berry in there, among others. For 2025, they think they found their regular driver. You know, the guy who lost his ride at Wood Brothers to Berry. They're going with Harrison Burton.
Oh, boy.
This will mark a return to the Xfinity Series for Harrison, who racked up 4 wins in his time between 2019 and 2021. But, of course, at that point in time, he was driving for Joe Gibbs. Moved up to Wood Brothers in the Cup Series in 2022, but not really overly impressive until he got the Wood Brothers their 100th win as a team at Daytona just a few races ago. Qualified him for the playoffs. The 15 car is actually in its first year under AM Racing. It has only 2 top 10 finishes, both with Joey Logano behind the wheel. And we talked about the first time with Joey Logano behind the wheel that car got a top 10. Joey Logano had to basically explain how air pressure worked to the team over the radio
at Chicago
during the race. Again, we asked the question, is it the driver or is it the car?
Is it the entire team?
Let's get back to Connor Zilisch. Zilisch became the first driver, as we noted, in top-level NASCAR history to claim a pole and the win in his first-ever NASCAR race. 18-year-old, as noted in the recap, is signed to Trackhouse Racing, but they're loaning him because, well, Trackhouse doesn't have an Xfinity Series program really to speak of. So they're going to loan him to Junior Motorsports for the 2025 full-time ride in the Xfinity Series, to which Dale Jr. is going, hey, thanks. Appreciate the use of the very talented driver. The post-race interview, not talking about trackside, talking about in the media center. And yes, there is one. For those of you that have not had the opportunity to go to it, yeah, they do the whole situation of the trackside interview for television. Then they'll go into Victory Lane and they'll do the celebration. They'll do the radio interview. And then after that, once even radio is gone, there will be another interview that's done by the track official. At Talladega, it's the track president generally, where they hand out the trophy to the person and he, has it up over the head. Then they do the hat dance and the pictures and all that kind of stuff. And then driver and crew chief and maybe team owner, if they happen to be there, all get transported into the infield media center where they do another Q&A session.
Which is a little hop, skip, and a jump from Talladega.
Mm-hmm. Fairly typical of being the 18-year-old kid that Connor Zilisch is. We hear that he walked in with an energy drink that he slammed down on the table in one hand, and before he even started to take questions, pulled out his phone and started strolling through his phone.
Yeah.
He also interrupted the Q&A session. We got a phone call. This one, on the other hand, I understand why, because the person on the other side was Dale Earnhardt Jr. You take that call. But he didn't seem overwhelmed by the moment. Really, truth be told, not even while he was on the track in the Junior Motorsports number 88 Chevy Camaro. When the red flag happened that left him sitting idle on the track for about 20 minutes, he wasn't concerned about the car. He wasn't asking questions about the track or the car or the other cars to his spotter or his crew chief. Instead, what was he doing? He was so at ease, he was asking about college football scores.
Yeah, he was. I thought it was funny.
We talked about this during Cross Flags, so I'm not going to belabor this. But go check out Cross Flags. You'll find out a longer bit of this conversation. But things like this tells me that Connor Zilisch is extremely comfortable in his own skin, in his own racing abilities, and in the car's abilities. And he's just comfortable. Watch out for him.
He's past comfortable.
Yeah. Watch out for that.
Past comfortable can be dangerous.
Yeah. Watch out for him. Full-time, officially, 2025. And running the vast majority of the races through the rest of this year.
Yeah, he gets his official baptism on a super speedway in a couple of weeks.
Looking forward to it. Parker Kligerman has made the Xfinity Series playoffs this year, just in as the 12 seed, the last and final one. He was also in there last year. Announced he was stepping away from full-time racing at the end of this year, and it left Big Machine Racing with a fairly big decision to make. Who was going to be driving for them in the number 48 Chevrolet Camaro going forward? And now we know, because Wednesday they announced they've signed Nick Sanchez to take over the car. The 23-year-old's set to move up from the Craftsman Truck Series, where he's racing full-time this year with Rev Racing. He's got 2 wins so far this year. Also has that 2022 ARCA Menard Series title to his credit. And this marks a mini reunion for Sanchez and Big Machine. Big Machine had Sanchez drive for them in 6 races in that 2022 year. Best finish of 7th at no less than Martinsville. Patrick Donahue will remain the crew chief of the 48 car. Gainbridge, who's sponsoring Sanchez for a lot of his current activities with Rev Racing, is moving up as well to sponsor him in the Xfinity Series, at least as an associate. I'd be shocked if they didn't get a couple of times on the hood.
There's that G word again.
Mm-hmm. We keep talking about them.
There's that G word again.
What do we mean by that, by the way?
Well,
we keep talking about the fact that there are connections that keep pointing to Andretti Global getting into NASCAR. And Gainbridge is probably one of the biggest compass points pointing true north towards that. I'll let you explain more.
Gainbridge and Delaware Life. Those two mainly. Gainbridge, Delaware Life, Group 1001.
Mm-hmm.
They're all under the same banner.
Yes.
Okay. That is owned by Dan Trowis, or president and CEO, Dan Trowis, who is the co-owner of Andretti Global.
Huh.
See where I'm going with this?
And on top of that, within the past 4 or 5 weeks or so, we heard Andretti Global say that while Formula One is their main priority, yes, they're looking to join NASCAR in the near future.
As well as NHRA. But I don't think that it's a bad move to partner up with somebody the likes of Scott Borchetta that has such a monstrous footprint now in Nashville and across motorsports.
Yeah.
Touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Then we get to talk about Dale Earnhardt Jr. Welcome back into CRN, hour number 2 underway. I'm Steve West, along with without producer Matt, along with the hobbled coach Matt Nicholson. We explained that in the first hour. Go back and check it out.
Yeah.
Xfinity Series race last night. Dale Earnhardt Jr. finished in the top 10, 7th specifically. Had a good run. And this is fairly typical of Dale Earnhardt Jr. He has, ever since retiring from full-time Cup Series racing, been running at least one Xfinity Series race a year. A couple of years ago, he ran 2.
Drinks beer on pit road after the race.
Not a bad deal, right?
No.
With Zilich signed for next year to drive the 88, Dale Jr. admitted on Friday that his one planned Xfinity Series race this year, that might be it, at least for a little while. He said he's got no plans for 2025. Said he is considering all options, including skipping at least 1 year, but admitted at some point in time he might feel the desire to get back in a race car at some point in time and just turn around and do it. It's the leisure of owning your own team. He told media in the media center, quote, "Well, I'm not planning on racing next year. I'll be foolish to say I'm never going to run again because I don't know well enough to stay away from it, and I'll probably miss it next year and be absolutely willing to sign up because of anything that might be beneficial to junior motorsports.
He can run one when he wants to.
And I don't have a requirement to run next year, so I might just not do it. And I will miss it terribly, regret that I didn't race, and probably in 2026 find me somewhere that I can go compete in the Xfinity Series again. But right now, I don't have any plans. You want to talk about waffling? That's politician level waffling right there. I might not, could, but maybe not.
Big time.
We'll see. I'm going to put an exploratory committee together, and I'm going to discuss running in 2025.
Sure, why not?
Dude, you own the team. Run whenever, wherever. It's up to you. Truck Series news, Craftsman Truck Series news with the Texas Motor Speedway announcing a long-term extension to their deal with SpeedyCash.com. They will continue as the race's title sponsor next year and for the next couple of years. Under the agreement, another brand under the parent company, Community Choice Financial, Title Max, going to get some signage at the track for the race too. This will continue a deal that actually began in 2019 with Victory Lane naming rights added in 2020. And a blanket 2-year renewal done in 2023, which covered 2023 and this year. Connor Daly set to go full-time in full-time IndyCar racing next year. Try this at home, kids. But he's going to get a couple of more starts in the Craftsman Truck Series before the end of the year. For Nice Motorsports and the number 44 Chevrolet Silverado signed a 2-race sponsorship deal with him and with Polka Dot to cover the races at Kansas and Homestead, Miami, continuing a partnership that Daly actually enjoyed with the company when he was racing in this year's Indy 500. I don't have a picture of it, but I can tell you this right now. This is a truck that will stand out from the crowd because, well, it's a very hot pink.
Very is an understatement.
Yes. That is a bright, bright colored truck. Comfortable in its own skin. You got it? Okay. While he's working on that, let's talk about a kid by the name of Corey Day. Corey Day is set to get his debut in the Truck Series later on this year. He's going to bring the HendrickCars.com sponsorship with him for a total of 4 races before the end of this year. It actually began Thursday night at the Bristol race. Drove the number 91 Chevrolet Silverado for the team in the races also at Kansas, Homestead, Miami, and Martinsville. Now, who the heck is Corey Day? He is a California native who made his name in winged sprint cars and this year is competing in the High Limit Racing Series. 46 races so far in the series. He's got 7 wins. He's 5th in the season standings this year. He's also the youngest USAC National Midget feature winner, has a World of Outlaws feature win, and a Chili Bowl preliminary feature win to his credit as well at the ripe old age of 18. Not bad for Corey Day.
When you've got Hendrick basically saying, hey, come on, kid. And Hendrick is fully backing him on top of Rajah Caruth and Kyle Larson.
We'll see what happens.
I think he'll be somewhere in a stock car full-time next year.
Probably. Did you find a picture of that truck?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not.
Let's turn our attention over here to Formula One, and let's look first at qualifying because unless I miss my guess, they're either done or certainly in Q3.
They are in Q3 with 7 minutes left.
Okay. So who dropped out after Q2 would be the big question.
After Q2, you have Esteban Ocon.
Okay.
Kevin Magnussen.
Not really a surprise.
Sergio Perez.
A little bit of a surprise.
12th, Franco Colapinto.
I'd like to say it's a surprise, but again, I have a hard time saying that because he's a rookie kid in a Williams car.
Alex Albon, 11th.
Okay.
So your Q3 final 10 is Sainz, Alonso, Tsunoda, Russell, Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen. Currently sitting P2, Nico Hulkenberg.
Hello.
Oscar
With 7
Piastri.
minutes left? Wow.
Oscar Piastri.
Okay. No, I gotta say, I'm getting used to seeing Nico Hulkenberg within the top 10 when it comes to qualifying. It's not real. I'm not really surprised by the 10 that are up there.
How you start is how you finish.
It's true. I agree. And that brings us to Max Verstappen. He seems to be having more troubles than success lately, including seeing his team lose the Constructors' Cup lead and he himself watching his lead dwindled to a slimmer margin than he's really seen at this point in time of the season in, 3 years? Mm-hmm. The latest is when he met with media on Thursday in Singapore. He was asked about his race back in Azerbaijan. And he firmly and quickly opened up mouth and inserted size whatever foot he's got by saying, as soon as I went into qualifying, I knew the car was beep.
Sierra. Foxtrot. Military code words here.
Use your imagination.
Yeah, use it.
Yeah, that didn't sit too well with the race stewards. So they called Max Verstappen to the principal's office. Verstappen has been told by the FIA that he has broken the FIA's International Sporting Code regarding language, quote, not suitable for broadcast, unquote. Said he would have to perform, these are their words, not mine, some public work of interest. I don't know exactly what that means. Verstappen apologized. Still got to do the work. It's like community service here in the United States. All of this followed when FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem said Thursday that the sanctioning body was set to clamp down on the use of profanities by driver and team members that F1 broadcasts can and generally do pick up. NASCAR and IndyCar have pretty similar rules. The question is, how evenly will this be applied? And I say that because we've actually already seen this. There was another driver earlier this year that actually got caught cussing over the team radio during the race in an F1 race. And he got fined, I want to say it was the equivalent of about, I think it was 30,000 euros. Not quite $40,000 US. In this case, this wasn't caught on Sky Sports, therefore it wasn't broadcast on ESPN. It was only caught by whoever happened to be watching the Thursday media interviews, which I think you can only get on streaming anyway.
Yep.
So instead of fining him, they decided to give him, again, the equivalent of community service. I'm not so certain I agree with that. I think if you're going to penalize the driver for this particular infraction, which I get it. I mean, you want broadcast standards because you don't know who all's listening and who all's not, right? So I get the broadcast standards bit. But if you're going to take one situation and you're going to fine them a monetary amount, shouldn't that be the baseline for the penalty from this point on?
All right. Luckily, I haven't taken my third round of my steroids that I've been prescribed yet.
Soapbox time, ladies and gentlemen.
The other ones are still in my system in full, so I'm just going to open the floodgates up here. These, back up. When you are sitting behind a 5-point harness, whether you are in NHRA dragster, any kind, you're in an F1 car, you're in an Indy car, you're in one of the top 4 levels of stock car racing, that's ARCA included.
Okay.
Whether you're in an asphalt late model, running the bull rings of the Midwest and the Southeast and the East Coast. Whether you're in a dirt late model or a dirt car, or that sprint cars included, you cannot find me one single driver or team anywhere within the solar system galaxy that we are in this universe that has not in some shape, form, or fashion at one point used an explicative laced tirade.
Sure.
And I will say, me included. This is an intense sport. It is a deadly sport.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially. But more times than none, the little phrase, heat of the moment, will overcome anyone that has control of that car.
Sure.
It's going to happen. These radios that are team radios, they are on public frequencies. Okay? Public frequencies.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
For anybody to be able to hear. Even television.
Mm-hmm. And as we have seen many times, television will take advantage of that.
Television will take advantage of it, and they will play it later to where the dump button can be used for a derp,
Oh,
derp
yeah.
at any given point.
Sure.
This is what Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to say about the incident a moment ago. So guess what they're doing? They're scanning it to edit it to, if it's playable, good grief, what a word. Playworthy. But to be like, oh, you can't do this in the car. You can't say that in the car because it's for public transmission. If you put a radio over your ears and you're listening to your respective favorite team or driver talk back and forth, that is called, like it used to say on the back of the tickets, the little fine print on the bottom, assumption of liability. You are liable to hear anything be said over that radio.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking that at your own risk, television included. So why are we at the point to where you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't drop this bomb, you can't say that even if it's about your own car that you're driving? Give me a break. Simply put, give me a break.
There you go. Ratcheting it up, by the way, FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem said at some point in time after the words that I gave you a minute ago that he wants to cut down on the use of profanities, that the F1 drivers aren't like rappers. They don't just go out there using the N-word and cussing in all of their songs and everything. Lewis Hamilton, do yourself a favor. Keep your mouth shut. Because he responded saying that that was a racist comment. No, it's not. Have you listened to rap music lately? And Lewis Hamilton, I know you have. Because I've seen your playlist. You might want to pay more attention to the words being used in those particular songs.
From that standpoint alone, it is people trying to take something that is this
And
make it that. Make it that.
Stop trying to turn molehills into mountains.
Because I can tell you right now, there are people that were within the hip-hop community that are of multiple nationalities that will use terms of that nature.
Yep.
That's the politically correct way I'm going to say that here on this platform.
Yes, because we're not going to use those words.
No. That's the term that they want to use. Shut up and drive the car.
Please. Let's get on to better news out of Formula One. For example, as they prepare to get into the 2025 season, they're set to hold their preseason testing in Bahrain. Now, this is kind of to make up for the fact that they're taking the season opener away from Bahrain. For the first time since 2020, they're moving the season opener back to Melbourne, Australia on March 16th of next year, which, by the way, fully applaud the move, think that it's actually a very good move on their part. Okay, so to make up for it, they'll give them the preseason testing. 3-day preseason test is going to take place the final 3 days of February next year. All 10 teams are going to be there with their new for 2025 racers and, well, a whole lot of new faces and new places, too. This will mark the 6th time that Bahrain has hosted preseason testing, going back to 2009. Teams can put one car out on the track each day for 3 days. Generally, they'll switch off between those drivers so that they get plenty of seat time. As for the regular season schedule, as noted, Formula One will start in Australia. They have moved the race in Bahrain and its fellow Middle Eastern race in Saudi Arabia back to the 4th and 5th races of the year. So here's how it begins. Australia leads off, then to China, then to Japan, before going to the Middle East, and then on fairly soon to their first run to North America.
Somebody learned how to use an app.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Congratulations, guys. Then there's silly season news. Good night almighty, this is just so wild. As for one of the seats that has yet to be filled, we head over to the Sauber, soon-to-be Audi situation. Sauber, of course, set to turn things over to Audi in 2026, but for 2025, it's beginning to look more and more like both of their current drivers will not be back. We already know Nico Hülkenberg's been signed away from Haas F1. Their second driver hasn't been announced. And truth be told, with the performance that we've seen out of their two current drivers, I understand why they're waiting. You looked up the qualifying just a moment ago. Tell me again where the two Sauber drivers are sitting right now in qualifying for tomorrow morning's race in Singapore.
Sir, that is going to be 19th and 20th.
And pretty much all year long, that's about where they've been in qualifying. Oops. So, team representative Alessandro Bravi met with media last weekend, said that nothing has been 100% decided yet other than Nico Hülkenberg. Admitted that either Zhou Guanyu or Valtteri Bottas could return, but again, considering neither has scored a single point this year so far, it seems pretty likely Audi's going to want to put their own stamp on this team right now and probably will be urging the team to go in a different direction. Bravi said ultimately the decision about who will be the teammate of Nico Hülkenberg will rest upon the shoulders of their incoming team principal, Mattia Binotto, who's still working his way into the system but hasn't taken over the full role of team principal duties just yet. Bravi said, quote, he's taken charge of all the dossiers, and the drivers is, of course, one of the most important dossiers. In other words, he's going to be in charge of all the personnel at the Sauber, soon-to-be Audi operation. Bravi continued, quote, we are evaluating all the options to see which is the best balance between the short-term experience and the medium, long-term, maybe young talent. There's potential candidates on both sides. Valtteri's a strong driver for our team. We know him very well. He has been with the team for 3 years. And, of course, he's on the top of our list. Is he?
No.
But there are other opportunities. We're just looking at all the pros and cons. Mattia will take a decision based not only on 2025, but on the medium long-term strategy for the Audi F1 project. And that's why I ask, is Valtteri Bottas really your top option?
No.
Because if he was, wouldn't you have already signed him? Just throwing it out there. I'll be interested to see exactly who it is with the Audi name attached that they might be able to attract. Because the Audi name should be attractive, even though they're fairly new to the Formula One scene. They're getting into an established team, and all they got to do is really more tweaks than major renovations. They might actually be able to pull a fairly good-sized name.
Stay right back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
So a little more than an hour ago, we gave you the race recap on Baku last week, and you may have noted a couple of things if you were listening at that time. Number one, Red Bull ain't the leader in the Constructors' Cup standings anymore. McLaren has taken it over. We'll give you a little more onto that. This marks the first time in 55 races that Red Bull has not been on top of the standings. That goes back to the Spanish Grand Prix of 2022. In other words, the early part of the 2022 season. As for McLaren, this marks the first time that they've been on top of the Constructors' Cup standings in a decade. Well, decade plus, technically, because they left the 2014 Australian Grand Prix on top of the Constructors' Cup, and then that was it.
Choked.
Then you got Ollie Behrman. Ollie Behrman, if you were listening, if you didn't, I'll let you know, he claimed 10th place for Haas F1. That marked his second time finishing in the points and only his second race. I'm not sure whether this is one of those things that you should be proud of very, very vocally, but it is interesting to note that he becomes the first driver in the 76-year history of Formula One to score points in his first two races for two different teams. Okay.
That's not a bad thing to have in your corner, if you ask me.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but, you know, again, is this something that you're going out there and touting big time?
No.
You know, I mean, you certainly you want to score points in your first two races, but you do it for two different teams, which means you're not full-time yet.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's one of those things. How much are you really touting?
Yep.
McLaren let it be known this week that should their reserve driver, Gabriel Bortoleto, get the chance to drive for Sauber, soon to be Audi in 2025, that McLaren actually would not stand in their driver's way. Well, there you go, Sauber, soon to be Audi. There's a possibility for you. They said that they would hope to be able to try and work with Sauber, maybe on kind of a situation where instead of actually leaving McLaren, he could just be kind of loaned to them. Why? Well, Bortoleto has been pretty impressive. He joined Formula 3 in 2023, where he claimed the series title. So McLaren moved him up to Formula 2 this year, and he's leading the standings after last weekend's race in Baku. Bortoleto was on the short list for Sauber earlier this year, along with Nico Hülkenberg, who they went on to sign for their existing drivers. Of course, we talked about Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. Apparently, they've also got their eyes on Teo Pourchaire and even Franco Colapinto. We'll get back to that. Bortoleto is the major reserve driver for McLaren. McLaren's in an odd situation, though, where they're not really looking for anybody. Both of their current drivers are on multi-year deals. But they are looking ahead to the future and going, at some point in time, we're probably going to be interested in making a change to the driver, and we like this kid enough to make him our major reserve driver for 2024. So, yeah, if Sauber wants him, I think they would like to work out a deal where he does get loaned to them, and they could pull him back at pretty much any time.
Sure.
That may be something that Audi doesn't care for, and that may be the burr under the saddle, so to speak, for Bortoleto to go there next year. As for Williams, they have said that Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, being signed for 2025 at least, they would be willing to talk also with Sauber about Colapinto driving for that team. Williams team boss James Voles met with the media upon arriving in Singapore, noted he hasn't talked to anybody from Sauber yet, but added, quote, if they wanted to, we'd be open to conversations around it. It's their decision for 2025 and beyond, but from my perspective, I think he would be a very valuable asset.
I mean, right now in two races, he's taken one of the Williams cars that has virtually been irrelevant.
Logan Sargent's old ride.
Who was in Nashville last week, by the way. Taking that car and has put it inside of the top 13 2 weeks in a row in qualifying.
Yeah.
He's 12th.
Scored points last week.
Of course, scored points last week.
What has Logan Sargent been fairly unavailable and unable to do since he got into the car?
That would be score points.
I thought that's what it was.
Yep.
I was just
That'd
checking.
be score points.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He would be a good asset to have for Sauber, if you ask me, and pair him with Hülkenberg.
While it wasn't said, I get the funny feeling that Voles has pretty much the same thought as what McLaren does when it comes to the driver situation. We'd prefer him not to leave. I mean, yeah, we've got our two drivers set for next year in Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, but Colapinto's a pretty promising driver. Maybe it's more of a, we'd let you borrow him but he's still going to be ours.
Yeah.
And again, Audi may not like that. They may want to be able to sign a driver to where they have control of the driver instead of having Williams or McLaren in charge of it, and they can pull that driver pretty much at any time they wanted to. More testing for the 2026 Pirelli tire happened this week. Remember, 2026 is when we get a whole lot of new regulations, and we even get a new size tire for 2026, so that's why they're already doing testing. On Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, Aston Martin pulled out a 2023 racer and put a reserve driver, Felipe Drugovich, behind the wheel, began a test of those tires. The difference from now to 2026 is still going to be 18 inches, but they're going to be reduced by 25 millimeters in the front and 30 millimeters in the rear. Not an insignificant amount, just to let you know.
No.
This means changes in how the tires are going to handle the pressures of Formula One racers at speed, how they're going to handle heat, how they're going to degrade, things like that. Considering no team has their 2026 spec car ready to race yet, the FIA and Formula One cleared an older model racer with a reserve driver to test them, only allowing Pirelli really to get the information. In other words, it doesn't allow any team, in this case Aston Martin, to gain any information that could be used as an advantage now. Then there's Daniel Ricciardo.
You could gain how the tires are going to wear.
Yeah, but that's information that Pirelli's going to spread to all the teams.
True, but you can see how the tires are going to wear visually and be like, make mental notes. Okay, wearing here, wearing there, wearing like this, however you want to look at it.
Sure.
Mental notes can go just as long of a way as it is with physical notes.
Sure. And that's why this test will continue to be spread out.
Right.
All the teams are going to get a chance to do this.
Right.
As for Daniel Ricciardo, he over at Red Bull, specifically VCARB right now, he's seen the highs of Formula One and the lows. He's got 8 wins in Formula One, and he's also been out of the series for a short period of time. Says he isn't concerned about his future, though, even though it is uncertain as to whether Red Bull Racing is going to keep him there because they do have that promising reserve driver of their own in Liam Lawson. He's bucking for a shot in F1, so Ricciardo might find himself without a ride again. The Australian native Ricciardo, now 35, doesn't think he's going to be the one cut, but he said that if he happens to be, he knows what he wants to do. NASCAR. Okay. He talked to Australian media this week, one magazine in particular, and said, quote, "I grew up a fan of NASCAR. I'd like to drive NASCAR. I'd love to drive around Daytona, for example." At least he knows his limitations. He continued on, quote, "But would I like to compete? Yes and no. I know it's not what I grew up doing, and I'll probably get smoked, so I don't know if I need to do that, but I would love to experience it." Not exactly a career move.
Dear Daniel, I hope this message finds you well in Singapore. YouTube Live, CRN Live, put us on the Red Bull car. We'll take it.
Sure.
If your fellow comrade Juan Pablo Montoya can do the very same thing, get his baptism by blowtorch in his inaugural stock car start in ARCA at Talladega, give Max Siegel a call at Rev Racing, and you would be a perfect fit to get into a car of Rev Racing and go.
A marketer's dream.
Go.
Kidding me?
Go.
As flamboyant and charismatic as Daniel Ricciardo is, he would be a marketing person's dream.
Because all you basically have to do in ARCA is complete 5 laps and hold a straight wheel, and they will approve you to run at a truck or a cup race. Not a cup, truck or Xfinity race.
And you've proven you can do that.
I mean, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Speaking of knowing his limitations, he also thought about one other possibility.
Now he's becoming a nut job thinking about this one.
He added he's intrigued by MotoGP, noting his love of motorcycles. But he also cautioned that he said, quote, "I would be very, very slow and probably horrendous." Again,
stick to 4 wheels, son.
Know your limitations.
Stick to 4 wheels.
Which I think he does.
Yep.
This one is a big story, which, yes, we kind of buried. But the main reason why I buried it is because we haven't heard the whole story.
Yeah, this one was a head scratcher.
The FBI, the G-Men, the G-Men, yes. They sent agents and raided the Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing headquarters in Zionsville, Indiana on Wednesday. They did what? That they did. They're investigating a situation related to a former Andretti Global employee who left and went to RLL Racing to take a senior engineering role with, allegations that he took intellectual property from Andretti Global along with him and is using it at Rahal Letterman Lanigan.
Okay. If he's using it from one organization to the other, why is RLL not even in the same zip code as Andretti? That's my question.
Yes, we're doing the investigation. The team released a statement, quote, we are cooperating fully with the investigators. Given that this is an ongoing investigation, we are limited in what information we can share right now, but we intend to provide additional information as soon as we can. The FBI also was in the Andretti HQ back in August looking for proof there first. Other than the statement, neither Andretti nor RLL are commenting any further. And let's face it, it's the FBI. They don't comment on jack. Just saying.
Literally.
And figuratively. With the 2025 season now over, IndyCar teams are now assessing in the aftermath. They're looking ahead for 2025. Meyer Shank Racing, they've decided that they wanted to keep Felix Rosenqvist. This is not a bad move. Rosenqvist, they've signed him to an extension of his deal through at least 2026. It's a multi-year deal, length not actually announced. Rosenqvist joined MSR this year after having raced 2021 through 2023 for Arrow McLaren and, of course, with Chip Ganassi Racing for 2 seasons before that. Claimed 12th in the final 2024 standings, 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s, plus he obtained the pole for the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, so he shows that he does have a grasp on the Meyer Shank Racing car, and all they got to do is figure out how to get a little bit more out of it. Is Rosenqvist a guy that you figure you would sign to a long-term deal?
No, it wasn't. It was not.
Well, how about this? Ready for this? With David Malukas leaving Meyer Shank Racing to go to AJ Foyt next year, the team needed a second driver and wasted very little time. Signed Marcus Armstrong to become his teammate. Armstrong was one of the casualties over at Chip Ganassi Racing's, cutting down from 3 full-time teams to down to 3 from 5. The 24-year-old Marcus Armstrong came to IndyCar from the F1 feeder ladder. He claimed the 2023 IndyCar Rookie of the Year, and he's racked up 5 top 10 finishes in that time. For the season just ended, he added oval track racing to his first-year slate where he only did road and street courses. Got another 3 top 5 finishes this year, garnered his first podium finish. That happened in Detroit. So Armstrong and Rosenqvist for Meyer Shank Racing next year.
I didn't peg Armstrong making that move.
Good,
I didn't.
Better move for Armstrong or for Meyer Shank?
It's a better move for Meyer Shank.
I would agree with that.
Because it's Armstrong is making, I would say, a below lateral move, going from Ganassi to MSR.
But again, in this case, beggars can't be choosers.
True. That is true. That's very true.
He's one of 2 drivers that they're out regardless.
Yeah.
We knew that.
Yeah.
You're cutting down teams.
So it's a better move for Shank for sure.
Okay. Then there's Ed Carpenter Racing. I apparently felt 5 years was enough. They have cut ties with Rinus VeeKay. I did not see this coming. They're now searching for a new driver for the number 21. Reports did have both team and driver as recently as last week trying to work out a contract extension, but apparently they just couldn't find common ground, and it results in the split. Now, VeeKay, he's not necessarily been blowing the lid off things, but he has been consistent for Ed Carpenter in IndyCar. He's finished in the season standings in his 5 years, 14th, 12th, 12th, 14th, and 13th, for an average finish of 13th. He was solid again this past year. He led in laps completed, 5 top 10 finishes over the final 8 races of the year. So it certainly looked like things were going into the right direction, but it just wasn't good enough for them to keep him. And now VeeKay is in a situation where things have gotten a lot tighter because seats are really starting to fill up pretty quick for 2025.
If Carpenter does not go after Alex Rossi, something's wrong.
I would agree. ECR said that they will have an announcement soon on the new driver situation, with some reports saying it could come early this coming week.
Hello, Alex Rossi.
Be the worst move.
No, it would not.
We do know one driver it won't be. Callum Ilott. Ilott has joined with Prima Racing for their inaugural IndyCar year. Ilott, all of 25, has 38 IndyCar starts to his credit and 2 top 5 finishes, which dates back to his first race in 2021 when he got his start with another IndyCar startup at that time, Juncos Hollinger Racing. It's also a homecoming for Ilott. Ilott raced for Prima back in 2017, back in Formula 3, where he got 6 wins that year, along with 11 total podium finishes. Prima, of course, is that group that we announced is going to pair Ilott in the near future with another driver, and they're going to have to qualify for all the races next year because they are not in a position to be guaranteed to start for either one of their cars. I don't know. We'll see. Again, with Callum Ilott there, this is a driver they know.
Yeah.
This is a driver they've won with. I mean, obviously, you're not doing the same exact thing. It's not Formula 3. I don't think there's a whole lot of comparison between IndyCar and Formula 3.
No.
But at the same time, he knows their system. They know him. Mm-hmm. If they can get into races. Because think about this. With Prima saying we're going to bring in 2 full-time cars next year, that means 29, and we're only guaranteed 27 starting positions. We talked about this on Cross Flags podcast as well. That means 2 cars are going home. And 22 of the 27 right now that are guaranteed starts based upon the leader circle deal?
22 or 23, yeah. Something like that.
It's one of those 2.
Yeah, something like that.
So at least 2 cars are going home. And those 2 cars could be from some fairly big name teams. It's kind of like Bump Day in the Indy 500, where we've seen like Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan parking a car. This could be a really interesting situation coming up next year, especially when we look at the situation of Prima Racing needs another driver. Hey, Renus, just saying you're out of a ride over at Ed Carpenter. Maybe give him a call. They might could use you. And Prima hasn't given us a timeline on when they want to make the announcement for driver number 2. Maybe now would be the time to start trying to pave that road.
Might not be a bad thing.
Then there's also Indy Next and another sponsor talking about working their way up and having a pretty good end. We'll talk about TopCon next.
We will be right back. to the Championship Racing Network.
I love hearing stories from Coach Matt.
Oh, I got some
stuff.
good ones.
Yeah, it is a good one. Can't wait for the finish of it. We are getting ready to finish here at CRN because we're talking IndyCar here, and we're in our final segment. I mentioned a group or company called TopCon, TOPCON. They are a primary sponsor for Indy Next driver James Rowe. We saw it back at Barber Motorsports Park back when they were racing here earlier this year. They're now set to become an official partner of the IndyCar Series, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Indy Next as well. TopCon Healthcare will, in their partnership, provide equipment that will help series officials perform the annual driver physicals and medical exams throughout the racing season beginning in 2025. The equipment will be used for drivers that are involved in crashes, but will also be available for race officials as needed and maybe even fans in the stands who may have a medical situation at any point. TopCon, primarily known for their ophthalmic equipment, think eyeballs, to assist those examined to determine whether or not they're having any sight problems, which this could also help, by the way, when it comes to concussions.
Good.
Because concussions can affect your sight as well.
Yep.
So pretty cool deal there. To the National Hot Rod Association, couple of things there. Last year, Tony Stewart, for example, jumped from top alcohol to nitro top fuel, and the driver who bested him for the 2023 division title in that top alcohol was a lady by the name of Julie Nataas, Nataas, if you want to look it up. She's set to follow that move. Scrappers Racing has announced plans to put out a second entry into Top Fuel at the Midwest Nationals here in a couple of weeks, and Nataas will be the person behind the control for her Top Fuel debut. She's going to pair with Jasmine Salinas in Top Fuel. Scrappers will also have Gianna Evaristo in their funny car entry for the weekend, so it's an all-female driver lineup. It's the last weekend of this month. In other words, next weekend.
That is an interesting jump for Gianna Evaristo. From motorcycles to funny car.
Indeed. Salinas said of getting Nataas, quote, "We've had all the pieces in place for a second team, but plans obviously changed earlier this year with my dad having to step out of the driver's seat. After Julie licensed with Scrappers Racing, she approached us with her sponsors about running the St. Louis race, I'm assuming home track. We felt that this would be the perfect opportunity to trial run a two-car team while my dad continues to heal. This is an exciting moment for Scrappers Racing and the first step towards bringing our vision of expansion to life."
I think that'll be pretty cool. Have a dual female driver team.
Yeah, bring it on.
Not bad at all.
See how good she does. And if she steps out there and does really, really well, suddenly now you got to figure out whether or not you're going to put a three-car team out there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Tease this at the very beginning of the show. NASCAR announced a new driver replacement policy for 2025. This specifically affects women. I'm going to kind of clarify this because the replacement policy right now that surrounds, for example, John Force, which relates to Fast Jack Beckman. There's a reason why John Force Racing waited until there were only, quote-unquote, 8 races left in the year to put Jack Beckman in the car. Because replacement driver rules under NHRA rules states that the replacement driver scores points for the original driver up to 8 races. For women, things are a little bit different. It's basically the same kind of overall driver replacement policy, but when it comes to those who are starting a family or adding to their existing family, in other words, they're pregnant.
Sure.
Think Leah Pruitt. Pruitt was actually a driving force behind this amendment to the replacement policy because, of course, she and her husband, Tony Stewart, expecting their first child in November. Pruitt claimed a career best third in Top Fuel points in 2023, but with the decision to start the family, Pruitt made the decision to sit out the entire 2024 year and said, quote, "It was a very uneasy time when you have something you've done for your whole life, which is to concern yourself with your team, your partners, your fans, and everything surrounding racing. And I had to make what I considered one of the hardest decisions of my entire life, and that was not to race in 2024. So Pruitt got together with other female drivers like Erica Enders, Angie Smith, Julie Nataas, Jasmine Salinas, Ida Zetterstrom. They all urged this change by NHRA leadership, which prompted series officials to then consult with doctors. And then they held a conference call with all the women racing under the NHRA banner. In other words, they did this right. Let's go get as much information as we can from those that know what they're talking about.
Sure.
And then we'll take this and we'll bring all that information to the ladies themselves, the ones that are most affected, and let's come together on something.
Right.
The funny thing is the initial plan presented by the NHRA was that if a woman got into just one race, then they would earn points for the entire year. Seems a little generous, right? And the ladies said pretty much the same thing. The ladies said might be a little overtly generous. They countered, proposed a system where both the lady, the pregnant driver, and the replacement driver would be compared at the end of the year, end of the regular season. And who earned more points, that would be counted towards the championship run.
That's not a bad concept. But see, my thing would be is this. Say if you get, what was it, 21 events? 2021 events, give or take.
Depends on which series you're in, but yeah, if you're Top
Let's
Fuel
say
or
if
Funny
it's
Car, it's probably, I think it's 21. Yeah.
2021. All right, let's say most of us know how the laws of physics work. Let's
Sure.
word it that way.
Yeah.
Let's say within a 5 races in, you've got Jasmine Salinas like, hey, found out I'm expecting here. Okay, typically you really don't know that until 6 weeks in. Typically,
but yeah. But she finds out.
But she finds out.
Okay,
She's
I
already ran
like 5 races into the year. We'll just put it
5
that
races
way.
in the year.
She finds out, okay.
Has she been racing 5 weeks pregnant? 6 weeks pregnant?
One would presume so.
You would think so, but the G-forces you would be putting yourself in danger.
Especially as you continue to go on through the pregnancy and through the season, yes.
Right. You go back to the situation of what Leah did. She just said, I'm not going to run the season at all and not put it in any risk. Fantastic move.
Sure.
All right. There's a lot of caveats you could look at it in this way from.
Agreed.
But the overall concept of it, and that's being fair to the female racers as well. Very fair.
Exactly. I
And
agree.
Same situation where the Jack Beckman deal with John Force, he's earning points for John Force.
Yeah.
Is what he's doing.
But again, that's a situation where it's only for 8 races.
8 races, yes.
In this situation,
Season long.
And I got to admit, I like it.
Yeah, it's very good. And I think it's very fair because season long, you find out you're expecting or expanding your family. More times than none, you're going to miss the entire season.
Yeah.
Because you've got that recovery period after the birth is given, and you've got to recoup yourself along with other things.
And the ladies' counteroffer that says, hey, once we get to the point where we're done with the regular season, we still have the 6 races left in the countdown to the championship. Let's compare the 2 drivers, using your situation 5 races in. Maybe Jasmine Salinas did accrue more points than the replacement driver, whoever that person may be.
Yeah.
Maybe the replacement driver accrued more points. Either way, the car is going to get the title. The driver might get the title, especially if they can go on to win the championship. But the credit goes to the person who accrued more points leading into the championship. It's fantastic.
Not bad at all.
Pruitt said that the counter seemed more fair. Quote, myself, Erica, and Angie tried to put ourselves in our competitors' shoes and go, what is this? We didn't want anyone to think that it's not fair, that it's not right, and how would we feel? So we said, no, I think it should be who gathers the most points. If I start the season, I end up pregnant in May. Tony comes in, he finishes the season out for me, and he's in the countdown to the championship and went through the pressure and everything that it takes to the end. He should be the champion. If I gather the most points, somebody comes in and finishes the season on, but I did the majority of the heavy lifting, well, then it would be in my name, and we all agreed that is where it should be.
That's
Bingo.
That's a fair balance.
Bingo.
Very fair balance.
Nailed it. All the other series, take note. The Koretsky family, which bought the Maple Grove Raceway back in 2022 and have been systematically upgrading the facilities ever since, note that they have another sellout weekend last weekend. Said just before the weekend, all the Saturday grandstand tickets sold out too, matching the Sunday finals ticket sales. Sellout marked the 5th sellout in the 2024 season as well for the Mission Foods Drag Racing Series. Congratulations. Formula E, not that anybody truly asked them, but Envision Racing wanted to be very clear about it. So they announced that their 2024 driver lineup of Sebastian Buemi and Robin Freins will be back for the upcoming 2024-2025 season. The pair began last season with questionable results, but they ended on a high note. No, I'm not going to try a soprano. With 3 podium finishes in the final 4 races, hoping to lock themselves in. Both drivers have a lot of Formula E experience. Each of them 229 starts in the series. To their credit, 99 of them with Envision Racing each. The team has more podium finishes and has led more laps than any other team in the history of the series, so they're going to be solid, if maybe unspectacular next year. Maybe they'll find something. Yep. Then there's Lola Racing. Lola Racing is coming in next year along with ABT, partnering up with them, and they've announced the rehire of a guy by the name of Peter McCool to be their technical director. Why rehire, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I've got the answer. McCool was part of the Lola team the last time they were involved in open wheel racing, back from 2009 to 2012. You remember that, right? He's got a resume that, by the way, has plenty of experience in senior design and engineering and open wheel racing, which includes both Formula One and Formula E. McCool, in addition to his previous Lola experience, also has worked with the likes of McLaren and Super Aguri in Formula One, then later joined Mercedes in their Formula E effort, and all they did was win back-to-back driver titles in 2020 and 2021, and back-to-back team titles in 2021 and 2022. McCool takes over for Mark Tathan in that role. Tathan will remain with the operation as their technical consultant. I don't know exactly what that means, but you're still employed, so
yeah, true.
Yay.
Very true.
I'm trying to find a silver lining to the cloud there, dude. I'm working on it. I'm trying.
Yep.
And I will state this, that we don't generally cover the ARCA Menard series here. We'll cover big stories from time to time, big races maybe. But I thought this was worth noting because with his win at Bristol on Thursday night, William Sawalich has won now his second straight ARCA Menards East Series title, marks the fourth straight series title, by the way, for a Toyota driver in the series. And it might be just that time for Sawalich to move up. He's got 2 straight titles. He's been getting rides in both the Truck and Xfinity series, and while he hasn't necessarily been blowing things up, he has certainly not been wrecking everything in sight either. So I ask you this question, sir, because we talked a little bit about this during the Cross Flags podcast as well. ARCA Menard Series East, does that qualify him under your, if I took over NASCAR rules for a day, allow him to go ahead and move up to Truck Series, or would you rather see him move to ARCA Menards National first?
He's done enough on National and East to where he could go to Trucks.
Okay.
He's done it across both of them. But
would you give him a pass to skip up to Xfinity? Just asking.
No.
Okay.
He better, all I got to say is he better send Logan Mizuraka a Christmas card, Christmas basket, gift cards to wherever she wants and everything else, because with her goofy wreck that she did and how she did it and rolled back down the track and took Connor Zilich out, she gifted him that title.
There you go.
Sorry. Just calling it like it is.
Love it. All right. So here we go. Next week, you're back to morning a game, right?
Yep. Morning games rest of the year. The way it looks now, I probably won't be back unless weather intervenes. I probably won't be back in the studio until November. But I will be via phone.
Via phone for at least first two segments.
At least first 2 segments.
Okay. As far as producer John, I don't know. Probably not until sometime next month. And don't forget, we got Talladega looming, which probably means we're going to be off that weekend anyway. Just to let you know, that's first weekend in October. When we come back, I don't know. Producer John might actually be able to rejoin me. Time will tell.
I will be on the horn, though.
Yep, there you go. Join us for Cross Flags on Wednesday. And then, of course, we'll be right back here next Saturday for another edition of CRN. Enjoy the racing. Have a great week.
See ya.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.